Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Merry Christmas, X. I've started a journal of strange things I've seen and heard since I moved out into a small town in the middle of the desert in Arizona. Be me 4 months ago. Girlfriend wants to go for a night walk in the desert behind the house. Sounds fun.png. Get the usual kit for desert walks. Pack stuffed with water, toilet paper, and snacks. A pistol in my waistband and a brush axe for opening up paths through washes. Make our way out into the desert. Little to no moonlight, but we have flashlights, so it's cool. Cross a wash using a previously cut hole. Get into the opening between two washes. Wandering along and idly chatting as we approach the next bit of foliage. Hear human voices to our front, slightly muffled by the wash. What the hell? Wave. I shut my light off and we stand idly listening. Voices sounded like they were agitated and couldn't make out anything they were saying. Around 20 minutes pass and we don't hear the voices for a while. Turn back and cut through into the first wash. We get into the middle and hear the voices again. They sounded like they were in the area we just came from. Shut off light and stand idly, free hand resting on the pistol in my waistband. A few moments later, .jpg. I pull my pistol from my waistband and check the chamber. I'm usually carrying red, but it never hurts to check. Motion for my girlfriend to take the lead, since the voices sound like they are behind us. Cross the open desert back to our house and scoot inside, locking up everything behind us. This was probably the first time I'd heard human-sounding voices out there, and considering that the majority of people who live out here are old retired folks, I doubt they were out hunting us in the night. More posts to come. This one happened probably 2 or 3 weeks following the previous post. I didn't keep the date. Be me sitting at home on a Wednesday night, taking a break from drinking. Girlfriend has been getting really into spiritualist type stuff, so she's always going out into the desert to meditate and collect plants and stuff. On this occasion, she'd opted to go out not long before sunset and take her time out there. Not that it bothered me. Darkness sets in around 7:30 p.m. Text her a couple of times, make sure she's doing okay. She keeps up and tells me she'll start walking back soon. Stay occupied with YouTube for a while, and when I check my phone, it's 8:40 p.m. Text her. Nothing. Wait a few minutes, see if she's in the middle of posting on social media or talking to someone on the phone. After around 10 minutes or so, I start prepping to go out. I'm not assuming the worst, but I'd rather get out there in the offhand chance she's sustained an injury or something. Cross the 2 washes, start climbing a hill up onto a little plateau. As I'm walking uphill, I notice a light shifting around in the distance along with the low drone of an ATV motor. It's to the southeast, close enough to see and hear, but at a distance I wasn't too concerned about. Get to the crest of this small hill, see a strange light in the sky as well. Looked vaguely like a shooting star, but in slow motion. With a big trail behind it, it was super bright. Watch this for a few seconds before my phone starts vibrating in my pocket. Girlfriend is calling me back. Pick up and ask where she's at. Find out we passed each other. Mention the light in the sky to her. She says she sees it also. Asks me to try to record it if I can, since my phone camera is better. Attempt to record, but the distance to the object, and with how dark it was, it came out looking crappy. We agreed to meet up at the house. Says she's done for the night. Start making my way back, keeping my head on a swivel to see if I can spot my girlfriend. Get into the wash, hear human voices calling out. Stop, turn off the light and wait. Still can't make out any words. It sounds like mindless hooting. Assume it's just rednecks out joyriding around. Stick head out from wash, see the ATV light from earlier just stopped as the hooting continues. Notice the sound isn't coming from the same direction as the ATV. In fact, it's way off. Voices stop and then the ATV putters along in the direction the voices were coming from. What .mp4. Wait a few moments before turning the light back on and starting to wander back towards the house. Get to the open stretch of desert between my house and the first wash. As I'm walking, I hear this very sudden shrill sound, almost as if I got hit with sudden tinnitus. Freeze, try to figure out what the hell that just was. It goes as quickly as it came, so I continue walking along. Hear that noise again a couple times as I trudge the 200 or 300 feet to my fence. Get back into the yard, wait around for girlfriend. Still hearing that weird sound, feeling a little uncomfortable. Get a call from girlfriend. She's just gotten out of the first wash. Stay on the phone with her, asking if she'd heard the noises. Says she heard the hooting kind of sound, but hasn't heard the other one. We talk as she makes her way. Apparently she'd taken another route through the wash and had a longer walk than I did. See her phone light in the distance and start to feel relief. Hear the tinnitus sound again, but girlfriend goes, "What the hell?" over the phone. She heard it too and said it sounded like it was in front of her. Watch as she picks up her pace. I put my hand on my pistol. She gets to the fence and I help her in before we both nope into the house. As we hit the steps, I hear the sound again, and that only gets us inside quicker. We get inside and lock up. We're both very worked up for some reason, can't quite explain it. Haven't heard that sound except for 2 other times, and it was never exactly the same. After this, things quieted down except the occasional hearing of human voices in the desert at night, but still I assumed it was people just going out and partying in the desert. Short third post, but I will continue with the 2 most recent things, which happened while I was in my backyard, having smokes at sunset and night. Continuing with entries, I'm going to condense the next 2 the best I can since they're pretty short overall. Be me 6 days ago. Get off of work, head inside and enjoy my downtime. Little bit agitated after a long commute. Starting to drink some beers, head outside for a smoke. Sun is still pretty high in the sky, so no big deal. Make note of how cloudy it is, since later I'll probably need a light to navigate back to my smoking spot. A few hours later, WMV. It's dark now, probably 7 p.m. Still feeling a good buzz from drinking beers throughout the afternoon. Plop down into my yard chair and light up a cigarette and take out my phone. Start messaging friend about stuff. Mention how dark it is tonight. Note, I'd previously told this friend about the other stuff and hearing the voices in the desert. Mention that it's probably going to happen again. I think I'll try to get a recording. Switch over to doom scrolling as I'm taking drags of my smoke. Hear a faint call from the desert, again sounds like the kind of hooting a redneck type would do at a tailgate or something. Coyotes in the distance and dogs in my neighborhood start going ballistic. Even the wandering mule starts losing its mind. Quickly switch over to the camera and start recording a video. Capture a few seconds of the animals going crazy, and then silence. Stop recording, go back to messaging friend. Mention that I heard the voice again, starting to attribute this to how dark it is. Go to take a photo of the moon to show how dim it is. Heavy steps in the brush directly across the fence from me startle the crap out of me. It's there and then it's gone. It sounded like something big. Fear.ping. Sitting absolutely still with at least half a cigarette left, and my eyes are darting around in the darkness, trying to spot something. All is silent. Stand up, taking a last greedy drag from my smoke before scuffing it out and throwing the butt away. Go inside, grab my handgun and light. Go back outside sporting light and a handgun. Hold up light and scan the area past the fence, holding my pistol at a low ready. Don't see anything. I sigh with relief and lower my light. Go to turn back to the house. Hear a screwed up sound I can't quite describe. Almost sounded like a human, but making a strange animal call. Whip light back around. I'm shaking, expecting to see some sort of abomination. Sector clear.wav. Dip back into the house. I don't go back out there for my last smoke before bed, 5 days later. Yesterday. Same routine as previous entry. Get home, grab beer, and relax. Been quiet since last entry, the clouds have let up and there's plenty of moonlight. Go out for a smoke as I'm getting into the holiday spirit with beer. It's around sunset. There's still plenty of light in the sky. Animals all around me are making sounds. Chickens going ballistic, cows wailing in the distance, and neighborhood dogs just losing their shit. And I hear coyotes howling far off. Assume it's the yotes stirring shit up. Feel a twinge of discomfort though. Usual smoking routine, doom scroll. Develop lung cancer slowly, rinse and repeat. I'm coming to the end of the cigarette and I hear a very short, high-pitched noise. Look around. confused. After a few seconds, I distinctly hear what sounds like the start of a buck or an elk call, but instead of the expected wailing call, it's a long, high-pitched sound. Everything is silent after the noise dies down. Silence breaks with animals going crazy again. Confused, but not quite freaked out, snub out smoke and head inside. I end up forgetting about it after a little while. Go back outside for a smoke. It's dark now. Very peaceful this time. The only distinct sound is the sounds of the highway. Light up, sit back, and enjoy the atmosphere. Faint moonlight, the sounds of the rural highway, a light breeze and the smells of a desert after a good rain. Absolutely cozy. WMV. Enjoying the cool and peaceful first night of a 3-day weekend. Take out the phone to message friend. We idly chat about the holidays and how things are going. As I'm in the middle of a message, the highway goes silent. There's no other sounds. It's entirely silent all around me. Suddenly I feel very uncomfortable, feels like my head is slightly vibrating as a result of the silence. It's feeling like it's getting to be too much. Almost opting to drop smoke and run inside. Mama ain't raised no coward. MP3. Stubbornly continue to take drags at my smoke. The world is eerily silent and can only hear the faint crackles of my cigarette when I take a drag and my own breathing. Finish cigarette and quickly go to head inside. I get 3 steps from the porch and hear the sound just suddenly come back from the highway along with some distant animal sounds. What the actual hell? Go inside and pound some beers before starting to recount the previous events. Still not entirely sure how to properly explain any of this. I'm going to continue to log things in the journal if things happen and will post when I can. I've got some other unrelated stories I could tell if there's any interest, but I think I'm going to take a break for a bit. Thanks for reading and Merry Christmas, friends. The desert in general is a weird-ass place, especially at night. Got a story from when I worked at a shitty discount retail store. Be me, 19. Work nights, straightening shelves, and helping out with furniture orders during the last few hours the store is open. It was a pretty busy night, but things slowed down just putting back stuff that was left at the registers. Finish up a cart full of stuff, go for another one. Decide to talk to the cashier for a bit to kill a few minutes. As we're talking, the automatic door opens, don't see anyone going through it. Assume a stray cat walked by and triggered the sensor, go back to talking. 5 or 10 minutes pass and it happens again. What? Radio manager, let her know the door is acting up. All right, we'll get someone out to look at it soon. Grab another cart, start putting stuff back and straighten up shelves. 9 p.m., rolls around, closing time. Go up to the front to lock the door after having the cashier make an announcement to pull any customers to leave. Do a quick patrol of the store, don't see anyone. As I'm walking past toys, I hear something hit the floor loud as hell. Peek head into the aisle to see a large and terribly cheap toy robot thing fell and is on the floor in pieces. Pick everything up and go to take it to the front to be logged as damaged. As I start walking, I hear something else in another aisle fall. What the hell? PNG. Loop back to where I heard the noise. Find a large can of hominy has fallen and is leaking. Pick it up and make a note to start here when I go to get the mop. Go up to the front with damaged goods, and the cashier takes care of these for me. Hear the automatic door motor try to operate, even though it's locked. We both look at it, hear it start to groan, look at each other very confused. Go through the rest of closing duties, occasionally hearing small sounds like stuff moving or extra footsteps while I'm walking. Feel very uncomfortable for the remainder of the shift. All the remaining crew, myself, one other employee and the closing manager, meet at the front to make sure we clock out and leave together. About time. GIF. As we're clocking out and taking care of small things, we talk about weird stuff tonight. The cashier left about half an hour ago, so I'm hearing from another floor crew person and the manager. Manager says she saw stuff fall off of shelves while she was doing the final count. Another employee heard noises from the women's bathroom while she was cleaning the men's room. I mentioned the stuff I heard move and fall, the steps and all that. We all sorta just shrug and go to leave. Manager triggers the alarm, locks up the door behind us, and we're all hanging around out front for a few as we usually do. I light a smoke. The moment everyone is out of the store and just hanging around, we hear a loud crash from inside. That feel when a whole set of shelves that makes up an aisle collapses. That feel when I just sorted out all that product about 45 minutes ago. We all look at each other and say nothing. Next day, the boss comes in to find a whole aisle collapsed on the floor, checks cameras. Cannot figure out what did it. Never had anything like that happen at that store again. There was a lot of weird stuff at that store, but this was the only major event nobody could explain. Returning after drinking most of all Christmas Day away. In a previous thread, I told the story of when I got stalked at the same store. There were a bunch of other strange non-paranormal things too. Be me, 20. Working at the same shitty store, got moved over to the morning stalking crew. Show up Thursday and Friday mornings just before 4 a.m. At this point in time, I had started dating this chick who was also on the stalking crew. We're sitting out front of the store together. I brought her a coffee and I'm chugging on an energy drink and smoking a cigarette. Hear movement to our left. Look up and see a very disheveled and obviously strung out guy. Probably about my age too. He wanders up to us, clutching his stomach. "Oh hey, can you call the cops? I've been stabbed." "What do you mean, Tiff?" "It's pretty dark, but the little bit of light is coming through the store windows. Cannot see even the faintest bit of blood on the guy at all." You good?" I ask him, and he ends up sitting down in front of us. He says he's okay, but he needs the police. Think about the last time I denied a drugged out guy a request, opting to call the police. Dial non-emergency since he doesn't seem to be at risk. Explain the circumstance best I can, being careful to make sure the operator understands that this guy is not in his right mind without pissing him off. Operator requests to talk to the guy. What the hell, why? .mp3. Hesitantly hand phone to the guy, he starts talking to the operator. Rambling about how his roommate and him got in a fight, and that said roommate stabbed him with a glass knife that locked his soul or something. Manager pulls up to let us in, notices the situation. Guy stays on the phone with the operator, continuing his drugged-out schizoid ramblings. Hang by to make sure I get my phone back. Cops show up, tell him they're going to take him to get help. They make sure he gives me my phone back. Continue shift as normal, never see guy again. I hope that guy got help, he was really polite.
I'm a mail carrier in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Folks here are spread out over long distances, and they still need to get their mail, so every day I take a long drive out through the desert to deliver mail to the residents. In February 2023, I was out by the Valles Caldera National Preserve and I blew a tire. It was late afternoon and it was going to be dark soon. The desert gets really cold at night year-round. Even worse, cell phone service is spotty around here. My reception was nil. My only options were to wait for a car to pass and hope they were willing to help. I could also hike up the hill and try to get a signal. Eventually, after I didn't report back, the post office would send somebody out to find me along the highway. But that could literally take hours, and I didn't want to spend the night out here alone. I chose to hike. I could probably make it up and back just before dark. I just hoped that I would get a signal once up top. I was about halfway up the hill when I decided to take a short rest and a water break. I was sitting on a rock and taking a few sips from the bottle when I heard some odd sounds. It was like loud chattering. It reminded me of cicadas that I remembered when living in the eastern US. It seemed like it was coming from behind a rocky outcropping directly in the path. I didn't see any other route, so I decided to just move slowly and see what it was. As I began to walk, I stepped on a loose rock and lost my footing. I slid down a few feet before catching myself. The chattering stopped, and I noticed something move out from behind a boulder. I saw a 6-foot-tall, thin insectoid with the head of a grasshopper. It had 2 large antennas on its head and a pair of large pincers, extending from its thorax. There was another smaller pair of pincers beneath that. It moved quickly left and then right, and then left again, stopping 20 feet away. It was horrible. I didn't know if running and standing my ground was the best option, but after I took another look at its pincers, I decided on the former. I slowly backed away, mimicking its movements. It stood still as it watched me. Then my cell phone began to ring loudly. The creature's antenna snapped to attention, and it quickly ran down the hillside. I instantly ran in the opposite direction, stumbling and falling as I moved. I eventually reached the bottom of the hill near the roadside, not far from my mail truck. I hopped into the truck and stayed put, hoping that the creature would stay away from me. I did catch a glimpse of the creature as it moved around the hill. I stayed put in the truck for several hours, not daring to leave its safety. After what seemed like forever, a car came along and gave me a lift back into town. What the hell did I see? I have heard a lot of stories of strange creatures in the New Mexico desert, but this was almost impossible to imagine. Of course, I haven't mentioned this to anyone other than my girlfriend.
I was working on some electrical lines on one of the poles out by the substation on Old Highway 80 near Buckeye, Arizona on June 15, 2017. It was about 4:30 p.m., and I was wrapping up my work and putting my tools away when I noticed a large object fly overhead, casting a shadow as it passed overhead and came down in the field across the street from where I was. The object was cigar-shaped and gunmetal gray and had to be at least 60 feet in length and was almost silent, apart from a whoosh sound that could be heard as it approached the ground. I was in a good position to observe it land, as I was up in a bucket truck working on the overhead wires at the time that I noticed it. The object came to a stop, and from the position I was in, it looked like the object did not come to rest on the ground itself, but looked like it was floating a couple of feet from the ground. The object was on the ground for about 3 minutes doing nothing, when something resembling a hatch opened about 10 feet from what was the nose of the craft. After about a minute of the hatch being opened, I witnessed what looked like 2 small children get out of the craft. Now please remember, I am about 40-50 yards from this object, across the street, and I was 35 feet off the ground in a bucket truck. But from my vantage point, I could see these 2 children walking down the ramp toward the field in front of them. They were about 4 feet tall and skinny, emaciated skinny, like the pictures of the starving children in Africa that you see on television commercials. They had big heads. It looked impossible for them to hold up with those frail bodies they had. They both wore what looked like dark blue one-piece uniforms that went down to their ankles and long-sleeved down to their wrists. The first one that came through the hatch walked down the ramp and waited for the second one to join them on the ground. They both walked over to the fields in front of them. They seemed to be interested in the crops that were growing, and it looked like they were taking samples. I slowly raised the bucket higher up to try to get a better view of what they were doing. They apparently did not notice me as they kept about their business. I observed them for about 6 minutes as they went about their business of walking through the field. After about 6 minutes, a tan-colored SUV came down the road, and they must have seen the large object on the ground because it came to a screeching halt and threw the truck into reverse, trying to see the object. The commotion must have alerted the beings as they looked up, and that is when they must have also seen me. They both immediately ran toward the craft at an ungodly speed, faster than anything I have ever seen move, and they went through the hatch which immediately shut behind them, leaving no trace that there had ever been a hatch right there. Just smooth metal. The object then lifted into the air, causing a cloud of dust to rise as it flew up and hovered there for about 10 seconds, before flying off to the west faster than any plane I have ever seen fly. I stood there looking in the direction that the object flew off until the gentleman who had been driving the SUV called up to me and asked me if I had seen that thing too. I shouted out that I did, as I made my way down to the truck. After getting off the truck, I spoke with the man for about 10 minutes as we were both just in awe of what we saw. I have seen many things out in the desert as I would work, but this is the very first time I have seen a UFO, much less the beings that fly them. I told my wife that evening, and she looked at me like I had lost my mind and said I might have been mistaken and seen a helicopter landing and maybe some soldiers getting out of it. But I know what I saw.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup,